Hi, this is Rebecca Cohen. This is my submission for Module 9 case study in educational leadership, when ethics and policies collide. This is my first case study. So, Section 1, case summary. The situation occurred at Rocket Junior High, where Richard is an assistant principal there. So the first student that we're introduced is James, and he's a little more on the rough and tumble side, has a history of offenses, but so James was brought to the office regarding a tardy, but then his fifth hour teacher said that she saw him hand another student something in the hallway, which he suspected to be drugs. The student happened to be younger, an honor student. His name's David. David was then also escorted to the office by a resource officer. They were both questioned. David was too scared to say anything, obviously visibly upset. So he ended up getting searched, and a set of brass knuckles was discovered on his person. When the officer handcuffed him due to the felony offense of a weapon possession on campus, James admitted to forcing the weapon on David and not giving him a choice in the matter. Either he'd take the weapon or he would get beat up. This led to both boys being cuffed and removed from campus. Zero tolerance board policy, which I'm not a fan of, but I can see how it would be necessary in bigger school systems. But so it requires a minimal 45-day expulsion into the AEP program. The parents were contacted like they were supposed to have been. However, Richard filed James' report, but did not file David's. Now he faces official reprimandation on his own record if he does not reciprocate the punishment to David. So there's a few legal and ethical issues behind this. The case study had mentioned that Richard had wished that he didn't invite the officer into the office. Maybe he could have kept David out of keeping him from being punished is what I'm trying to say. And I get why he would want to do that, but at the same time, it is a zero tolerance policy, and it's good to behave in situations like even if the officer hadn't have been there, Richard should have been making the choice that he knew he should have been making, even without the officer being there. So again, the board policy is the reason behind that, and 2, that's a federal offense, and if it were to ever get out that you did let a student get away with the federal offense, even though, yes, he was technically an innocent bystander, he didn't have a choice, that could still be unfortunate for the district. Ethical wise, Richard's having a hard time with this, and I see where he's coming from. It wasn't David's choice to be in this situation. He was basically cornered and pushed into it. He's an honor student, perfectly clean slate before this situation, but it doesn't mention anywhere that the principal ever contacted fellow administration. Your superiors are there to help you in situations like this, so I feel like maybe he should have went to them first before making any sort of decision. And of course, if he didn't follow policy, his director has no choice but to delegate a reprimandation on his record. And that could also be enough for termination should the board decide that. So a breakdown of the situation. Basically, the big issue right here, ethical dilemma, is an innocent student was forced into this bad situation by a repeat offender, and now they both face expulsion and time in the DAP program if the policy is followed. The principal did do what he needed to. He contacted both parents, informed them of the situation, The officer was involved, as I believe he should have been. However, Richard has chose to spare David and allowed him back into class a week afterwards, whereas James was sent to the DAEP as he should have been. You know, the director's in the same spot, though, because if you allow one administrator to pick and choose what policies he or she may follow or not follow, you're opening that door for other people. And it's not to say that David should be. I don't believe that David should be punished, because he was completely wrong place, wrong time. But there are other situations that could be made to look as if a student was innocent when maybe they're really not. I don't know. It's kind of hard to be unbiased in situations like this, but I just feel like if you make an exception for one kid, you have to do it for others, and then that just creates a whole chain of issues. So facts, Richard is the first-year assistant principal. He does a lot of extra things outside of class, trying to build relationships with his students. He's a great guy. James is a 15-year-old, so the older one. He apparently would seem to be a little more troubled given his circumstances, from the south side, so I assume the rougher part of town. Obviously prone to violence, given that his record of not getting in a fight had been a few months old at this point in time. David is a 13-year-old, the younger student, you know, the honors kid, great student, lots of promise academically. The only witness that's mentioned is a teacher, which was the 5th hour period teacher, in the hallway. There was a school officer during the questioning. James' mother got involved, you know, so she approves of the consequence. She thinks that it would do James good. David's mother was also involved, as she should have been, but she was extremely upset. You know, her son was innocent, so why is he getting punished for this still? The director came in at the end of the case study, you know, and then what we don't know is if there were any other witnesses, if there were like cameras. The case study didn't mention like a superintendent or his leading principal, any superiors like that, nothing at all. The place was Rocket Junior High. Situation happened in the hallway. Questioning took place in the office. Demographically, there's not really anything listed. Don't know if it's rural or suburban. I would assume suburban, given that 900 students is a decent sized school. It also says something about the south side destroying plenty of young men, so maybe it's a little more underprivileged situation with rougher kids and home lives. The program, we know it's public education, but we don't know curriculum, specific grade levels, or like any other type of program like special ed or anything like that. The DAEP, District Alternative Education Program, is mentioned as punishment and consequence of getting expelled from the school. The assistant principal also refers to it as a hellhole, so a little rough. Reviewing and prioritizing the information. First and foremost, this is a zero tolerance policy. This is what has made the ethical dilemma appear. Just because the kid happened to be innocent and just a bystander, the weapon was still on his person, so it still categorizes him for expulsion. The second part that I see is a felony offense, which is known to the officer due to, hence the handcuffs and being taken to jail in the detention center. Even if you are to follow policy, our issue here is messing with an honor student's life when he did nothing to deserve this circumstance. Punishing a victim is never what we hope to happen. And then the last issue deals with reprimanding Richard himself if he doesn't follow through with the paperwork as he's told. So there's options and consequences. I see two main ones. The first one, obviously, is to follow your policy. So therefore, doing what your boss is telling you to do if you're Richard, you're not going to get reprimanded. And while it's not necessarily ethically correct, it could still really damage an innocent student's future. So follow policy or not, which brings me to the second option, which is sparing David. So you're saving this student. You are showing him mercy when he didn't deserve to be in this situation at all. However, you're going to get reprimanded by your director, which could be enough cause for termination, as we mentioned earlier. The other thing is, like the case study mentions that James seems to be like in a rougher personal life. Maybe he has some issues, but if James's mom were to find out that they made an exception for David, would she feel discriminated against, or would she try to push for the same kind of result for her son? Not sure, but it could happen. Evaluation of options. So to further this, following policy, pros are you're not going to get reprimanded, you are listening to your superiors, you're supposed to, and you are upholding the zero tolerance in the eyes of everyone. I think that's probably the biggest pro to following policy is, if everyone sees that no matter what, even an honor student, even if they are caught breaking the policy, they are still removed as well. Like, grades aren't going to save you. Just because you had a clean slate and messed up once doesn't mean it's going to save you from your consequence. So to me, that's a really strong pro. Cons, however, is again, you're harming an innocent student that had nothing to do with this situation and was forced into this. You're also risking losing him to maybe another school. Honor students tend to test really high, so really good grades. And again, Richard's super worried about maybe messing up his future dreams and career. So, second choice, breaking the policy and sparing David. Pros is that you're sticking with what you ethically believe that you are doing right, so you're not going to have any guilt for following a choice that you didn't think was necessarily correct. And again, you are saving this innocent student. Cons is that you're going to be reprimanded. And I didn't put this on there, but going back to my pros on following policy, another con could be that other students are going to see this as not really as strict of a rule, hence the zero policy, so you might be opening the door for more situations similar to this, but not necessarily so innocent. So my decision that I would have gone with if I were Richard would be to follow the policy. I mean, you can't just pick and choose policies to follow. That would be like students picking and choosing which rules to follow. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean you can't follow it. You can't just choose what to follow and what not to. I also think that maybe Richard should have maybe talked this through with the director a little more, maybe asked to speak to the board and other administrations. Like it doesn't state anywhere in the case that he actually tried to take it further to administration to really push for this situation. Not really necessarily his job to fight the battle, but he definitely could have at least informed David's family about the possibility of fighting the situation. Implementation, like I just said, policy's policy. It's kind of out of your hand. You need to make it clear that this isn't your decision to just pick and choose whatever we want to follow and what we don't want to follow. I don't personally agree with zero tolerance approach, but maybe a situation like this getting brought up to the board could help future situations like this. The other thing is that this is also a felony matter, so again, if you try hiding a legal issue, that's going to make you look really bad if it comes out in public. So changes, I definitely would have interviewed students separately, and I would have notified my administration. I also, again, would have informed David's mother that it's zero tolerance policy, no exception. But that concludes my Module 9 case study. It was great to have this class with you guys. So thank you.